Fisher understands that it's very important to keep his team on an uptick going into the tournament. Plus, if they can win their remaining 6 games, it will probably get a #1 seed, which is very important. Now, on the other hand, Minnesota forgets seeding. They just want to get into the tournament. They're not looking at the NIT this year. That won't be good enough. Clem Haskins has already indicated that he thinks that if this team can win half of their remaining 6 games, then they're in. Another point to consider, Minnesota has not won on the road in the Big Ten in over a year. They come into this game with excellent momentum, and they feel that maybe today is the day they break that drought.
Minnesota comes in off victory over Wisconsin the other night and last Saturday in a game seen here on Raycom against Iowa. Offensive rebounding. Minnesota does it better than anyone in the Big Ten Conference. Michigan has fallen down in its last 2 games. 41 offensive rebounds against them in each of those 2 games.
And when you look at their strong front line led by Chris Webber, it's very hard to explain why Michigan hasn't been a lot stronger on the glass. Big point for Minnesota today with their leading rebounder Jason Walton. If Minnesota's able to be physical on the glass and play tough defense, then their chances of winning this game are greatly enhanced.
Michigan won a hard-fought battle up in Minneapolis, but the Gophers did out-rebound the Wolverines in that game last month. We've got Michigan and Minnesota just ahead on Raycom. Lineups for this afternoon's game. Walton, Carter, Colander, very physical front line. Jackson, Weber, Howard, extremely well-talented. And, Greg, as you take a look at the backcourt again, a good matchup there as well.
No question about it. Leonard coming off 2 very, very good games, 23 and 32 respectively. Rose and King are very tough for Michigan in the backcourt. Perhaps the key matchup, though, is in the middle, where Colander has to battle Juwan Howard.
And we will return for the start of this afternoon's game between the Gophers and Wolverines after these messages. Kelser and our Raycom crew on hand for this matchup between Michigan and Minnesota. The Fab Five as freshmen, and now they're the Super Softs as you take a look at them. And take a look at what they've done in terms of their improvement over last year for the most part. Weber, his stats have been up. Jackson, Howard, King, Rose down a little bit in terms of scoring, but he's got some powerful people he's dishing the ball to.
Well, the thing is, these guys, they understand each other much, much better. And the thing that really, really impresses me about them is they're all so very unselfish.
I mentioned Steve Fisher's been talking motivation this season. You come with a young team, go all the way to the Final Four, go to the final game. Greg coming back the next year. I mean, how do you construct big games during the season? It's hard to bring a team back. It's like the way people treat Michigan in terms of fans and media, it's like they won it all last year and they're trying to repeat. That's a different kind of pressure, takes a different kind of motivation this year for Fisher and company. He's done a great job. Clem Haskins, on the other hand, is rebuilding his program. He had an NCAA Tournament Final 8 team a few years ago. He's building toward that again. A big win the other night, 85-71 against Wisconsin, gave Haskins and the Gophers 14 wins on the season right now. And as you mentioned in the open, if they can split their final 6, they'll be in the big dance. Now the season series between these two teams, Michigan leads it, and they've won 23 of the last 24 here at Chrysler Arena. You have to go all the way back to the 60s for the last time Minnesota won a game here at Chrysler Arena. The officials for this afternoon's ball game, the crew led by Ed Hightower, Rick Wilco, and Tom Clark.
Ed Hightower will toss. And I tell you what, I like this game in terms of matchups. Both teams are very physical, and Ed Hightower leads the crew that will probably allow these guys to play the game. And again, if Minnesota is allowed to be physical and aggressive, then their chances of winning are greatly enhanced.
Clem Haskins told us Minnesota would like to keep it on the half court. No quick shot, work the offense. Don't want to get into a running game with this powerful Michigan team.
No, you do not, but he knows that there will be stretches of the game when they will go up and down. But for the most part, he'd like to keep it just like it is right now, under control, using the shot clock, which is at 12.
Jackson triggers it loose. Foul by Carter.
Now, of the 5 sophomores, Jackson is the best defensively. Has great anticipation, played the passing lane that time. Look at him, gets his hands on it, controls it, sends it toward the Michigan basket, and it takes a foul to stop the layup.
Ray Jackson come off some injury problems. Sprained ankle earlier this month. He had an injured left shoulder in December in the trip to Hawaii against North Carolina, but has played through those injuries and makes good on the first foul shot of the ball game. a lot of people, Greg, feel that even despite the injuries, he's probably the most improved overall in terms of total game of the Fab Five as they turn into their sophomore season.
Well, you know, the thing I've noticed is that each player on the Michigan team, the starters, they've all had to sacrifice some parts of their game. You look at their numbers, they're very impressive, but you know that they probably could do more, but the team would suffer if anybody really were to ascend to the top. So they all sacrifice just a little bit. We're looking at the big picture, which is making the entire team better.
Minnesota dealt well with the full court pressure by Michigan. They've been playing pressure teams the last 2 games out, Iowa and Wisconsin. Jalen Rose had the rebound for a moment. Jason Walton comes up with it. Offensive rebound for Minnesota and a putback. Well, second chance point to be very important today for Minnesota.
Yes, that time they sent 4 guys into the basket. There's Weber. Now he has to be pushed out from the basket. Colander will spend time on him as well as Randy Carter, and they've got to push him out from the basket. The closer he gets, well, the more unstoppable he becomes.
Colander with the wheeling hook shot, and Jackson grabs the board. Opening 2 minutes of play in this first half. Weber again in close. Michigan with the early lead.
That time, no one picked up Chris Weber until the ball was in his hands. If you wait that long to defend him, to battle him for that low post position, forget it. It's 2 points.
Gophers working the half court. Walton trying to hit Colander. Walton got it right back on a deflection, and Rose comes up with it.
Minnesota has to be able to get back and match up. A big part of this game in terms of them winning will be getting back defensively, finding their players, and keeping a hand up on the shot. Michigan scores a lot of points in transition.
Jimmy King hit the backboard with that side jump from 3-point range. Oh, good feed from Vashawn Leonard to Chad Colander, the big guy inside.
And that's exactly what Clem Haskins wants. He wants control play in their half-court game. And he doesn't mind working the shot clock.
Rose out front. Oh, the backdoor Howard.
It was there, but Chris Weber was not very accurate on the pass. A little difficult for Howard to control that time.
One thing Clem Haskins said is that Minnesota, we've got to keep Michigan in front of us, not let them get behind us for the easy layups and the spectacular dunks. Minnesota has to shoot better than they have thus far as well. King on a nifty drive.
That time, Minnesota didn't get back properly, did not match up, had no help defense on King when he got inside, and it was an easy 2 points for Michigan.
Another rebound for Jalen Rose. 6'8" point guard to Ray Jackson. Pass not quite there. Minnesota trailing by 2 with 16.5 to go in this first half of play.
And that's an area where Michigan can probably improve a little bit more. Their decisions in the transition game, really not an opening there. Rose tried to get the pass to King, and it was a little hard.
Coach Fisher was talking about finishing it off in the open court. Walton leaves that one short. Michigan hitting the board. Weber to Jackson. Jackson on a 4th through the foul. Randy Carter picks it up. It is his second personal foul, second on the team. And Minnesota could ill afford to have Walton or Carter in foul difficulty this afternoon against Steve Fisher's Wolverines.
Yeah, they're going to need all that interior strength. But I tell you what, Minnesota has to put high priority on taking good shots. Because right now, except for the 1 rebound offensively that they were able to get, Michigan has dominated the defensive glass, which ignites their break.
Dana Jackson just reported on for Minnesota in place of Randy Carter. Jackson from Chicago, Crystal Lake South High School. Jackson at the free throw line puts in on his 3rd in a row. Clem Haskins pacing the sidelines. Boy, it's like a library in here when a Michigan Wolverine heads to the free throw strike. 1 out of 2, and the rebound, Jason Walton, leading rebounder for the Golden Gophers. Vashawn Leonard, fouled by Howard or King. I believe they got Howard on the foul this time. Both were trailing the play.
Now, there was a fast break opportunity for Minnesota, and we mentioned that Haskins doesn't want to run. Sure, he wants to run if it's there. McDonald, who makes very good decisions for Minnesota, finds the streaking Leonard, who goes very aggressively to the basket, just as you have to. Didn't get the dunk, but got the contact, and he'll go to the free throw line.
7th in Big Ten free throw shooting is Deshaun Leonard. And, of course, as I mentioned the stat, I jinxed him out of it.
I tell you what, Leonard is a superb player. You know, he had been struggling before last week, had one double-figure effort in 5 games. But he worked on his shot diligently, improved it. In his last 2 games, he had 32 against Iowa and 23 against Wisconsin.
Break of the action will return after this timeout. That is the alumni band. The students here in Michigan are on spring break, and that guy in the cymbals, class of 53. Still, yes, sir, he can still bring it, can he?
Where are they now?
Yeah.
They're still here.
They're still here. They never really leave. There he goes. Tell you what, it's like he never left, right?
Oh, you get that feeling the minute you step back on the campus of your alma mater. Look at the field goals right there. Both teams struggling. 2 of 6 Michigan, 2 of 8 Minnesota. Minnesota now in a zone defense.
You'll see Clem Haskins change it up back and forth. Zone to man. Jackson misses. Was almost tipped in by one of the Gophers, and Juwan Howard does put it in for Michigan.
One thing you have to remember when you're in a zone defense, sometimes it's very hard to find a man to block out. That time Howard was able to slip inside. He forced Minnesota's guys underneath the basket, and it's very difficult to rebound from underneath the net.
Ariel McDonald's been playing very well at the point for Minnesota in recent weeks. Jackson's interior feed batted right back at him. Gophers take their time. They have been able to work the basketball on the half-court, Greg, but they still have not gotten the best of shots.
They haven't looked very comfortable, maybe a little nervous coming in. This is a big game for them.
Walton off the mark. Howard to King.
Well, Minnesota got back well that time, but Michigan really looking to blitz the ball up the floor at every opportunity.
Jalen Rose for 3. Colander the rebound. Walton. Colander the trailer. That's a nice touch out there.
Now Colander having trouble getting up off the floor, getting back defensively. He sets the tone for them defensively on the inside. Had a great game against A.C. Earl last week. Totally negated his effectiveness. And if he can do the same thing against Howard and Weber today, then of course Minnesota has a good chance of winning.
First turnover of the game for Minnesota, or for Michigan, I should say. And there's Townsend Orr on the bench. He is the 3rd guard for Clem Haskins. Separated shoulder, or at least they believe it's a separated shoulder. They're not quite sure. They're going to check further next week up in Minneapolis. But he suffered the injury in the second half against Wisconsin the other night.
Well, you may see bigger minutes tonight from Deshaun Leonard, and of course that man right there, Ariel McDonald. Townsend Orr, you saw his stats. That's a lot to lose off your bench in a big game.
Colander looking for room. Tough pass. It'll go to Michigan. Turnover Minnesota. Turnovers even at 1 apiece as the Wolverines set up with a 2-point lead.
Minnesota back in their zone defense again now. Michigan has not been able to really establish a perimeter game, so they're really clogging that middle area. Look at the paint. All Gophers.
Jimmy King, a tough pass as he ran out of real estate on the baseline. They say it was last touched by Minnesota, so Steve Fisher's team will get it back at the baseline. 4th full season of Michigan. He took over, the 89 campaign when Bill Frieder left right before the NCAA tournament and led the Wolverines to the national title that year.
And he's 12-2 in NCAA competition, which is the 4th highest percentage all time. So when he gets there, he knows what to do.
Jalen Rose was bumped by Dana Jackson. That is the first on Jackson, 3rd on the Golden Gophers of Clem Haskins.
Well, again, we must emphasize Minnesota's a very aggressive and physical basketball team. Now, will the officials allow them to be aggressive and physical here on the road?
Well, the game that you did on Raycom last week up at Williams Arena, they were allowed to be physical against the Iowa Hawkeyes. It was a physical ball game, and Michigan prevailed. Juwan Howard, a little jump hook. Riley. Colander banging the boards and got a foul coming up against the Wolverines.
There's Eric Riley, who comes off the bench, 7 feet, 245 pounds. So very strong, and the long arms just allow him a lot of times to reach right over the top of people without fouling to get offensive rebounds. When he caught that one, he was not He was not very accurate with the putback, but he's a player that definitely has to be blocked out because of the long arms.
Rob Pelinka with his first foul, second on the team. Good interior feed, and Jackson swatted away by Jalen Rose. Those long arms at 6'8". Ryan Wolf is in the ball game for Minnesota. He will inbound here on the baseline.
Jason Walton is 6'6". Probably more naturally suited for the guard position, but he plays a lot of forward here for this team. That time got it inside, but as you mentioned, Rose came over with the excellent help side defense.
Michigan leads the Big Ten in block shot. Dana Jackson. Ryan Wolf is a three-point shooter.
He's the zone buster, or in that particular case, just a shooter who comes into the game whenever the team needs some strength from the perimeter. He only shoots the basketball. That's what he comes in for. So Michigan, that is, will have to always know where Wolf is on the floor.
Score that field goal for Jimmy King. Goaltending on the slap of the backboard by Minnesota. Dana Jackson got up high.
So here's the shot, and clearly, I mean, that's an easy call for the officials and everyone else. You got to think the game as McDonald, the leader on this club, goes over and tells him.
Dana Jackson got the ball first. Had he not hit the backboard, Greg, that would have been a blocked shot. But he hit the backboard, and it looked to me like he hit the backboard after he tipped the basketball. And if he had not completed the swing of his arm and tipped the backboard, I think they would have called that. They might not have called goaltending on that. But again, the officials obviously a little closer to the play than we are. On the drive, Walton. They've got the foul out front. Do not score the field goal.
You know, when you consider the fact that Michigan's an up-tempo team, Minnesota got great practice against that, if you will, in their game against Iowa as well as Wisconsin, both teams that really like to push it up. So they'll see no surprises. And that last time, they did a great job of handling the pressure as they did against Iowa.
Ernest Zigomazapo in close. Minnesota leading by 1 once again as we seesaw in this first half. Pelinka. Gophers take away the defensive board. Ariel McDonald's pass for Jason Walton a bit too long.
And then Clem Haskin looks at Ariel McDonald and he says, hey, you got to think the game too. Points to his head saying, hey, there was no break there that time.
Excellent job done by Clem Haskins with that Minnesota program. Boy, I tell you, Williams Arena is just about, if you're a visitor, it's almost impossible to win there. They are 60-16 over the past 4 seasons at home. 13-1 this season. The only loss to these Michigan Wolverines.
Absolutely. That place is a snake pit for opponents.
What a great place to watch a basketball game. Jalen Rose. His first from the field, he has 2 points. Michigan back on top by 1.
They're up by 1, but this is exactly the type of game that Clem Haskins wants. It's very well controlled. The pace is what Minnesota likes. He said that they had to control the tempo, the pace, the complexion of this game if they were going to have a chance.
Dana Jackson looking for room. Ariel McDonald is open. Weber helped out late, and the rebound picked away by the senior Riley. King to Rose. Pelinka. Michigan taking its time in the half court.
And look where Weber is with the basketball. If you're Minnesota, you got to like that. If he catches it, you want him 17 feet from the basket.
Oh, Riley, good look. Weber lost the handle on it. Wolf comes up with it, and a foul on Jimmy. Oh, no, traveling the call on Wolf as he made the turn. Clem Haskins protests the call in rather animated fashion, but to no avail. See if we can pick it up as we head to the break.
Well, here's where Riley makes the pass inside to Weber, who fumbles the basketball.
And as Wolf makes the turn, he moves the pivot foot.
64% from the field. But if you're Minnesota, you got to like where he catches it here. 16 feet from the basket. It's not as tough that far out. But after he gets the basketball up, you cannot lose concentration on him because he's always moving without the basketball. This is where you do not want him catching the basketball. That's where you get your 64% field goal percentage. That will be a dunk on most occasions. Chris
Weber leads the Big Ten in field goal percent at almost 60% overall this season. Michigan basketball, Wolverines leading by 1. Jalen Rose. Minnesota, the 2-3 zone.
Michael Talley at the point now for Michigan.
Michigan holds the edge this first half on the boards. Weber from deep hit 3 of those down the stretch at Indiana. Dana Jackson the rebound. Wolf almost mishandled on the dribble. I think he did get away with one, matter of fact. Good interior feed from Walton to Jackson.
That time Walton located the defense, waited till Riley cleared the air above, and then got the shot off the glass. Much better. Last time, you remember, he got his shot blocked from the backside by Rose.
Yeah, when you play Michigan, you need air traffic controllers.
Oh, yes, and eyes in the back of your head.
Almost halfway through this first half. Rose dealing baseline. Offensive foul.
Excellent defense that time by Minnesota. They collapsed to the basketball. Rose trying to force it a little bit. Really nowhere to go on that baseline. And the call was proper.
Watch it from this angle, Greg. See if you can pick it up.
See, it looks like for a moment that the baseline was there, but watch Minnesota. Zigamazabo comes over, cuts off the baseline. Rose in trouble, goes up, tries to get it off the glass, but no, the official right there on the call.
Textbook help side defense by Zigamazabo, rotating to the baseline. Minnesota sets it up offensively. Bashawn Leonard. Goaltending, score the field goal. Jackson got the ball on its way down and then slapped the backboard.
Well, it was Dana Jackson for Minnesota that got the goaltend on an ill-advised block a few moments ago, and Michigan got 2 this time. Ray Jackson for Michigan on the ill-advised block, and that was going to be short.
Talley from 3. Walton the rebound. Walton tried to dish it off to Dana Jackson. Last touch by Michigan off the shin of Weber, I believe.
Tell you what, Michigan's doing a great job, however, right now of keeping Bashawn Leonard quiet. And Leonard's very important to the success of Minnesota. He has not scored, or excuse me, he scored on a couple of free throws and the goaltend, but for the most part, he has not really been able to get himself on track today.
Juwan Howard back on for Michigan, along with Jimmy King, Jalen Rose, and Eric Riley have a seat on the bench. Wolf, tough interior inside feed on the inbound to Zigamazabo, who was fouled way out on the floor by Chris Weber. One of those fouls coaches yelled at their team, needless foul out there. Zigamazabo is not going to be a threat near the midcourt stripe.
And you hate to see that type of foul on a player like Weber, because right now he's not in trouble, but later on the game, if he gets 3, maybe 4 fouls, you'll look back to that as being one that he probably should not have had.
9.5 to go, first half of play. Minnesota leading by 3. Nate Tubbs, and 5-second violation. Tubbs was guarded closely by Ray Jackson. Clem Haskins has to keep that ball moving on the half court.
Clem asking for a hold, but actually it's Michigan's defense which is forcing Minnesota far out on the floor and taking away all the passing lanes.
The lob for Weber. He finally corrals, and he's tied up by Zigamazabo, and the foul called.
And I tell you, on that one exchange, he looked like he was ready to just take the game over. He became very aggressive, and this is as aggressive as we've seen him. Watch him. He goes after the basketball, doesn't get it, but look at the way he goes back after it with a great deal of tenacity. And then it took 5 or 6 arms to keep him from going back up with it.
Dana Jackson first to the ball defensively, gets called for the foul. His second personal. 4th on the team. Jackson a brick.
Now, Minnesota has to be able to take advantage of Michigan's misfiring right now. Michigan really has not been able to get comfortable in their half-court sets, but Minnesota's not taking advantage of it right now.
Wolf in close, in among the trees, had it partially deflected, and here comes Jackson to Weber. Boy, he's got that big hand as he holds the ball. Juwan Howard has a nice touch up to about 10 to 15 feet. Jackson had to give up the rebound as he lost his footing. Still up for grabs, and Tubbs clears for Minnesota.
Real sloppy inside by Michigan right now. And again, as I said before, Minnesota must take advantage of this lull, because you can't expect a team as talented as Michigan to stay in the doldrums very long.
Nate Tubbs. Juwan Howard clears for Michigan. Wolf got an elbow, apparently inadvertent elbow in the face, and he's down for a moment. The official stopped the play right away. We can pick it up, I believe. Let's see if we can pick it up on the baseline.
I don't think there's any question it was inadvertent. Watch this. Howard's back is turned to Wolf.
Yeah.
He certainly caught it.
Ooh. He got a Bill Cartwright elbow right there. My goodness.
Ooh, are they? I wonder if they're as sharp as Mr. Bills.
I don't think so.
Couldn't be. We don't see any blood in the floor.
No. But Wolf will have a seat on the bench for a moment. Ryan Wolf, Martinsville, Indiana, coach's son. Played for his father down there. Steve Fisher talking it over with the official and feels that maybe his team was cost a fast break opportunity that time due to the stoppage in play. No foul call. Michigan sent up on the half court, trailing by 3, coming up on 8 minutes to go, first half of play. Juwan Howard tied up by Sigamazabo, and this one is on Ernest Sigamazabo.
Sigamazabo that time allowed Howard to catch and then tremendously improve his position on the floor. Watch this. Howard gets it. Now watch this. A couple of dribbles in, very aggressive, and he goes inside, and Sigamazabo has to foul. If you're going to make him catch it 14 feet from the basket, you cannot allow anyone to put it on the floor and get to within 7 or 6 feet of the basket.
Michigan has made 4 out of 5 of the free throw line here in the first half. Howard had 10 points on 5 of 15 from the field the other night at Penn State. And he makes good on a pair here, has 4 points. Steve Fisher's team is back to within 1. Oh, wait a minute now. Or are they? Ed Hightower stopped the action for just a moment.
There's going to be a foul call on James Bosco.
James Bosco has just reported on.
Still wearing that mask. Suffered the broken nose in a collision with Millard from Iowa.
Bosco's first personal. That is 5 on the team. Pressure in the backcourt. Walton. Ariel McDonald. As we mentioned, Minnesota well-schooled and working their offense against full-court pressure. When you take on Iowa and Minnesota or Iowa and Wisconsin on consecutive games, you're going to see a lot of full-court pressure.
Well, they threw the ball long against Iowa and got countless baskets. Jim Haskins says he's always wanted to do that, but he wasn't sure that his guys were ready to finish the plays. Well, they finished them superbly against Iowa. So far, the press has not bothered them today, but this half-court defense of Michigan has really pushed them far out on the floor. Look how far out from the basket they're being forced.
7 of the last 9 Michigan opponents have shot less than 50% from the floor, and Minnesota is struggling in their half-court. Nice play by Sigamazabo to break it up and deny King an opportunity on the break. 7:14 to go, first half. Minnesota hanging on by 1.
Something to drink, sir?
Yeah, make it a Bud Light.
Sorry, he just ran out.
Oh. Excuse me.
Bud Light. Of the Big Ten Conference Incorporated and is intended solely for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or the use of this telecast without the express written consent of the Big Ten Conference Incorporated is prohibited. Wayne Larrabee, Greg Kelser, Chrysler Arena. Ernest Sigamazabo hustling back on the Michigan break. Denied the Wolverines an easy 2.
Well, we talked about how important defensive transition is for Minnesota. You don't always have to intercept the pass, but if you can get a hand on it, deflect it out of bounds, and force Michigan to have to set up in a half-court set, then you've done a good job.
Coming up on 7 minutes left to go, first half. Weber in close, almost unstoppable down there. Score the field goal and a foul.
He comes up limping just a little bit, but I tell you what, trying to stop Chris Weber with an arm is like trying to tackle Barry Sanders with an arm. You're just not going to be able to do it. Here, he gets the ball inside, improves his position just a little bit. Now look at this. He was fouled at least 3 times on that play, but still got it up and in for a 3-point opportunity.
Number 51 in the maroon uniform, guilty of the foul, Chad Colander. And as you could see, he went down, did Chris Weber to take a look at his ankle, may have twisted it a little bit, completes the 3-point play, first 3 points of the afternoon. 7 minutes to go, first half, Michigan trapped. Ariel McDonald struggling. Vashawn Leonard.
They got the 10
seconds
seconds.
Across in time.
How about Weber? The quick hands. He was standing there going against the guard, Ariel McDonald, and almost stripped him. But it was that near strip that caused Minnesota to use up the 10 seconds. Here, look at this. Give me that ball. That at least cost Minnesota 4 seconds on that clock.
Howard, interior feed, Weber with authority.
I think he's taking over. I think it's becoming Chris Webber's game.
6:35 to go first half.
Minnesota has to recollect themselves right now. You know that Michigan's going to have spurts. You cannot be intimidated. You have to come down, work your offense, and try to get a good shot inside.
Michigan blew out Minnesota 95-70 a year ago on this floor. Minnesota can ill afford to let this game get too far out of hand.
Oh, you cannot pick your dribble up that far out on the floor. McDonald got away with a mistake that time.
Michigan's perimeter defense has been outstanding here in this first half. 8 to go on the shot clock for Minnesota. 5 to go. McDonald penetrates, left it short. Colander the follow.
Ooh,
nicely done.
Chad Colander bailed them out that time because that was excellent defense, forced a very tough shot by McDonald, but the block out wasn't there, and Colander cashed in.
Jackson to Howard. Bosco, the weak side rebound. Hit by Howard, won't go. Randy Carter, the rebound, fouled by Jackson, I believe. Either Jackson or King. Michigan hitting the boards hard.
Despite the foul on Jackson, Steve Fisher has to be very pleased with the way his team is starting to assert themselves on the glass. Here's Bosco. He's really not known for his rebounding, but he gets inside. There's a tip by Howard, and then Jackson finally over the back.
On Jackson, his first personal. Team is over the foul limit. They have 17 fouls now. The rebounding is even. And at the free throw line, Randy Carter. Carter left the game earlier due to 2 quick personal fouls within the first 3 minutes of the ball game. This time the one-on-one opportunity at the line, and here come the Wolverines, leading by 2. 5.5 to go, first half. Jackson on the perimeter. Skip pass with authority. The King made the move to the baseline. It was fouled on the play by Bashawn Leonard. First on Leonard. Now 17 fouls on the Golden Gophers as well.
When you play a team as talented as Michigan is, defensively you just lose a lot of options because you can't really double on anyone. You don't want to leave Bosco free on the perimeter. He shoots it well. You certainly don't want to leave Jimmy King open. But at the same time, you feel like you got to have pressure down low on Weber, who just went out of the game, and of course Howard. What do? You have to choose your poison.
Absolutely, yeah. Pick your poison. Jalen Rose coming back on, replacing James Bosco. Earlier, Weber left and was replaced by Eric Riley. Great depth in this Michigan rotation.
Tell you what, Eric Riley, who's in the game right now, you have to give him a lot of credit. Tremendous attitude. And of all the players that were here when the Fab Five came last year, I think he did the best job of adjusting his attitude and still finding a way to make a positive contribution to this team.
Bashawn Leonard missed on the drive. Here's King behind the back to Howard. No, but a foul. Oh, a little razzle-dazzle there.
And I tell you what, this, for the most part, docile crowd got a charge out of this one. Look, again, Michigan in the transition game. Pushing it up, and there's Howard coming down as a trailer behind the back pass by King, and a foul helped to cause Howard to miss the shot, but he's going to get 2 free throws here.
Jason Walton's first personal foul now. 18 fouls on Minnesota. Juwan Howard out of Vocational High School in Chicago. Does great work with a children's hospital, visiting kids here in Ann Arbor. Kids who are suffering from cancer or AIDS or any other number of demons that afflict youngsters. He does a great job with the kids. Bashawn Leonard had the ball stripped away.
How about that? Michigan got back so well that time.
Howard finishes it off.
First of all, when Minnesota threw long, which was the right decision, the ball got inside to Leonard. Michigan rushed back, caused Leonard to have to force a shot up. It was blocked, and then they raced back down court in offensive transition. They're starting to take control of the tempo of this game, Michigan, right now.
Jason Walton quiets the crowd here for a moment. His second for the field, he has 4. Minnesota trailing by 4. Riley in close again. Traveling the call here as he made the pivot.
about the importance of taking a good shot. If you're Minnesota, you take a good shot, even if you miss it, it gives you an opportunity to get back. Of course, if you make that good shot, then you've got all the time in the world to get back. So those things are very important when we talk about the importance of controlling Michigan's running up the floor in offensive transition.
Pelinka replaces Ray Jackson in the lineup for the Wolverines. Minnesota trailing by 4. Bashawn Leonard. Wolverines back the other way. This is Jimmy King.
This is an important stretch of this game because Michigan seems to be turning their attack up a lot here. And it's very important that Minnesota stays within striking distance near the end of this game. Now, I thought for the most part, and even right now, they're down 4 points. They're in good shape, but you can't allow Michigan Spurs to send this thing into a 12-point deficit if you're Minnesota.
Ariel McDonald broke up that Michigan fast break. Jimmy King triggers this one. To Pelinka. Stripped away beautifully by Jason Walton. Again denying Michigan a fast break bucket. Clem Haskins and company are hanging in with the nation's 5th-ranked team. It is Michigan by 4.
Ray Jackson buys time for Michigan to cleanly get back and strip that basketball, and then Howard starts to break. The big guy on the dribble, makes his pass inside, gets it back, and then finishes. Now remember, he was on the baseline, and he was the first player back. Runs the court very, very well.
That's 6'9" and a 240. And there's Bo Schembechler, former Michigan head coach. Bo doesn't get as good a seat as he used to get here when he was AD and head football coach.
Yeah, back then he could have sat on the bench. In fact, I think he did sit on the bench in a couple of those tournament games when Steve Fisher first took over.
I think you're right. Now he's got a euchre seat. Juwan Howard is 6'9", 240. You saw him on the run for Michigan. Boite, great athletic ability on this team. That is 2 for Pelinka. Is it 2 or 3? No, they're saying 2.
Well, Pelinka was stripped trying to get a layup before that timeout, but he comes back, gets himself out on the perimeter, open, and nails the shot.
Walton had it partially blocked. Ryan Wolf.
Boy, Michigan really scrambling defensively.
Headed for Colander. Saved by Ariel McDonald, who stepped on the sideline on the save attempt. So it will belong to Michigan.
Their defensive rotation right now is excellent. They're getting pressure on the basketball. They're double-teaming the post, and when the ball is kicked back out, they're right there with a hand in the face.
Well, I tell you, talk about defensive teams, Greg. 7 of Michigan's last 14 opponents have failed to shoot 40% from the field.
Incredible.
Percentage of Minnesota thus far in the first half. Under 3 minutes to go, first half of play. Michigan by 6. Very important juncture of this ball game now for Minnesota. Jason Walton denied that interior feed. Chased down by Jalen Rose.
Shot clock does not reset. It's at 20. Still plenty enough time for Michigan to run a play offensively. Weber
it's
not
Jennifer
looking.
Weber, who wasn't looking off. He was directing traffic the other way, yes. So
wow.
A miscue by the Wolverines gives Minnesota an opportunity to close back to within 4. Take a look at the reaction here.
Look at Weber. He's pointing away, and Pelinka thinks he's open, and the ball just sails out of bounds. Now, there's an injury right now. Minnesota, is that Randy Carter?
Let's see.
Oh,
Jason Walton, I believe.
Jason Walton, certainly they'll afford to have him, their leading rebounder, but he's pointing to the ankle area.
May have turned it. Hurt by Michigan, and again Minnesota solves it with relative ease. Coming up on 2 minutes left to go, first half. Wolverines leading by 6 in a low-scoring first half, 26-20.
Well, with the way Michigan...
Big Randy Carter on the drive. Offensive is the call.
Now that time 4 players collapse to the basketball. And if you're the man with the dribble right now, here's Carter. Now he's trying to avoid Riley, but unable to locate the player stepping in to take the charge. Right now, Minnesota has to feel that when they're on offense, Michigan has 7 or 8 players on the floor because defenders are coming from everywhere.
9 team fouls on Minnesota. As you see Steve Fisher talk it over with his point guard, Jalen Rose. And heading to the free throw line, Rob Pelinka.
Jalen Rose, the point guard. You know, when he was at Southwestern High School in Detroit, he played the small forward. And it was very surprising to a lot of people when he came here and they decided to put him at the 1 spot. He's a natural 2 guard, but I got to feel that whenever the time comes when he gets a chance to play that 2 spot, that he's going to be tremendous. Because of this experience he's gained handling the ball and making decisions as a 1.
Pelinka, the 5th-year senior, academic All-America, School of Business, may enter law school after his studies here at Michigan. Pressure again in the backcourt. Ariel McDonald double team, throws it off the shin of Pelinka out of play. So Minnesota will inbound again.
The absolute worst place to catch a basketball against a press. Over in the baseline, that's like having 4 men on you. You got Weber, Pelinka. Look at this. Now watch the catch. McDonald along the baseline. There's Weber, there's Pelinka, there's the baseline and the sideline. It's almost like you're being guarded by 4 people.
Here's a steal off the pressure by King. The tip won't go for Pelinka. Weber, yes, and a foul. Nate Tubbs, the guilty party on the foul.
Here in the last 3-4 minutes of this half, everything that Minnesota had been doing well, they're now doing very poorly.
There's the trap right there.
Here they get trapped, taking the basketball out of bounds. Weber right there just cleaning up the debris, getting the 3-point opportunity. Minnesota's got to spread themselves out a little bit better when they're taking that ball out of bounds. And the player taking the basketball out of bounds has to realize that he has the flexibility to run along the baseline to clear himself to get an open pass.
Riley, a putback.
The long arms.
Riley at 7 feet. Big exchange there now. Michigan leading by 12.
The long arms of Riley. Sometimes you can get a good block out on him, but because of those long arms, he reaches right over the top and is able to get an offensive rebound without fouling.
Dana Jackson trying to beat Cholander. Another Minnesota turnover. Weber runs the break to King. King, probably the best athlete on this team, especially in terms of running the transition game. And Weber, so very unselfish on the break, had the ball in the middle. There was no doubt he was going to give it up. He averages 3 assists a game. Good interior feed for Sean Leonard. Stops the run by Michigan. Sean with 5.
But Michigan right back in your face. You don't have time to celebrate some success. You're going against these guys. You got to get back. You score your basket, you better run back quickly.
Wide open Rose for 3. Weber trying to bang away at it. There's Riley. We mentioned offensive rebounding would be very important. Michigan doing the job down the stretch here in the first half, attacking the board, and Riley with the putback on the second chance opportunity.
Well, in their first game a few weeks ago in Minneapolis, it was Minnesota that garnered 24 offensive rebounds in the game. But so far in this half today, it's all Michigan. Look at this. This is the second opportunity inside. Riley cashes in.
The emphasis in practice yesterday for Michigan was offensive rebounding. They've done it well today. Got a foul coming up here on the trap on the Wolverines. The foul is called on Chris Weber, his second. That's 18 fouls. Take a look at the offensive boards. And remember, Michigan gave up 20 offensive rebounds to Indiana last Sunday, 21 offensive rebounds to Penn State on Wednesday night. Weber has a seat on the bench. Juwan Howard back on for Michigan.
The scary thing is what they do after they get the offensive rebound. 75% of their offensive rebounds end up in dunks. The other 25%, they end up on the free throw line shooting foul shots.
Well, that's how you come close to leading the Big Ten in shooting. Matter of fact, you do lead the Big Ten in shooting at almost 51% as a team over the course of this season. Michigan Wolverines. Ariel McDonald at the free throw line missed the opportunity on the 1-and-1. Riley cleans it up. Boy, Riley has been a presence, to say the least, on the boards here in this first half of play.
This is why concentration is so important. You just can't lose it going against Michigan.
No shot clock, final seconds, first half.
Minnesota controlling tempo for 16 minutes, and then a 4-minute spurt. Michigan puts this game into a 14-point deficit, possibly more if they can score here.
The other aspect of the game they've worked on, they've played for the last shot. Michigan, not once this year have they completed one of these sequences, getting the final shot of the half and scoring. This is something they worked on yesterday. Howard with a turnaround left it short. Still up for grabs. Ariel McDonald taken away by Jimmy King. Last second shot just short. Halftime here at Chrysler Arena. Clem Haskins and company did a good job for, as you mentioned, the first 16 minutes of this first half, but things got out of hand in a hurry as the Wolverines struck late, but nonetheless, they've got the 14-point, 36-22 lead as we reach halftime. Today's Big Ten Conference.
Through that effort, we provide our nation, indeed the world, graduates who are valuable in today's knowledge-based society.
Michigan has a tradition of instilling in our students the willingness, yes, the desire to harness their ideas and their talents for everyone's benefit.
I do it because I feel a need and a responsibility to give back to my community.
A medical research team from the University of Michigan has corrected at the genetic level the defect for cystic fibrosis. One of the researchers is senior Jeff Pinard. He has cystic fibrosis.
The university here is much further ahead than anyone else's in genetic research and in virology type research. And when you look at it, that's going to be the entire future of medicine.
A University of Michigan team has won Sunrace 90, a cross-country solar-powered car race, besting 31 other college teams. The students designed, built, and drove Sunrunner.
Michigan students are building a new solar car to win the next race this summer.
A University of Michigan ensemble, the Rackham String Quartet, has won its third major national music competition this year. The 4 musicians are graduate students on the Ann Arbor campus.
Tuition pays only a fraction of a public university student.
Minnesota did get it up to 40%. Michigan struggled early in the ball game. Three-point field goal shooting, Michigan does a lot better than that on a normal week, but they're hitting their free throws today, and the rebounding is the big story. We mentioned offensive rebounds, how important it would be for Minnesota to have the same kind of control on the boards they had up at Williams Arena. They are getting beaten badly on the offensive board. And hey, Big Ten fans, elevate your game. Elevate your game with this regulation-sized basketball from Rawlings by visiting your nearest Pizza Hut. Purchase any size pizza, and this great ball is yours for just $4.99. So take a time out at your local Pizza Hut. And remember that sometimes you just have to stop and smell the pizza. All right. First half of play, and really, Greg Kelser, as you mentioned, almost 16 minutes. Minnesota played this game at their tempo. But what happened, what you could see as this game went along, the Michigan pressure defense eventually got to Minnesota in the final 4 minutes.
Tell you what, you could also see why Chris Webber is the leader of this team. When he decided to turn his play up, everyone else got in line and followed suit. He became very aggressive at about the 5-minute mark, and from that point, after scoring just 20 points, Minnesota allowed Michigan 16 points, and they've got to get back in control of the tempo.
Take a look at some of the highlights. Chad Colander early in the ball game gets a nice speed right here.
Well, this was that play where Michigan really started to play tough defense. They forced Ario McDonald into a tough shot, but Colander on the save, and he gets the putback. That was one of just 3 offensive rebounds that time for Minnesota. On this particular play, Michigan got back well defensively. And remember, Juwan Howard handling the basketball like a guard out on the wing, gives it up like a big man should, and gets it back and finishes the play. That was transition basketball for Michigan. And then, of course, Chris Webber. We talked about him really turning it up. Here he gets the deflection defensively, starts the break, and because of his ball handling ability, he can bring it up like a guard, and you know, averaging 3 assists a game, he's going to give it up, and he does, in impressive fashion to Jimmy King. And, of course, this is the reason why Michigan took over in the last 5 minutes of the game. Chris Webber on the glass. He gets the 3-point opportunity there.
It was 24-20 with 4.5 minutes to go in the first half. Michigan went on a 10-0 run, and they have the big lead at halftime. We'll be back with the start.
And, of course, they've got to avoid periods of complacency. Now, they had a great run in that last 5 minutes of the first half, but Michigan almost always has a period of poor run where they allow a team to get back in the game.
I should point out that my colleague knows this Michigan team well because you played on an AAU team earlier this year. Then preseason that came in here to Chrysler Arena and beat the Wolverines by 1, right?
Yeah, we got lucky, very lucky here on the floor that night, but we had some guys that were in great shape, and we came up with a 1-point win, but they're a much, much improved team since then.
Well, let me ask you, boy, that last, if you could take away the last 4.5 minutes, Minnesota would be right in this ball game. As it is, they've got to dig themselves out of a 14-point hole.
Well, the silver lining in there is a great turnover, a swipe from behind, no communication. No one told King that Ariel McDonald was coming.
Chad Colander. Jalen Rose the rebound, the 6'8" point guard. Minnesota got a good look at the basket with Colander that time. Rose on the drive. Nicely done.
Well, you can't have a man bring it from coast to coast, especially after you've gotten back defensively, set up. No one picked him up, and he got inside. Good job by Rose that time of noticing that no one had turned around defensively for Minnesota.
Michigan trapping on the half-court foul here on Jalen Rose. His second personal foul, first on the team in the second half.
The silver lining in all of this for Minnesota is the knowledge that Michigan has been a team that, you know, has had lapses of concentration themselves and have allowed big leads to slip away. But, of course, Minnesota's going to have to improve their offensive production if they're going to get back in this game.
Colander the offensive rebound, but Sean Leonard on the drive.
And as we said, Leonard, he is so very important of whatever happens positive for Minnesota. Just his 7 point in this game. He's going to have a big second half, of which he's capable.
Minnesota guards combined for 38 points the other night against Wisconsin. Weber for 3. Chris Weber with 12. Boy, that takes some wind out of your sails if you're Minnesota.
Yeah, because you want Weber shooting from out there, but you got to have a hand in his face. He's knocked down 25 three-pointers on the season now.
Leonard going to work. He has the 2 field goals for Minnesota here at the outset of the second half. 9 points in the game.
Good defense that time, but no block out, and another offensive rebound for Weber, and he puts it back in.
Weber with 14 points, and Michigan maintains the 17-point advantage. Ariel McDonald. He penetrates a bit. Nicely done. So the guards have come to play here at the outset of the second half for Minnesota.
And they've got to continue that effort. McDonald's great at penetrating. He can get inside and dish or get his own offense. We didn't see any of that in the first half as Michigan really forced him far out on the floor.
2-3 zone Minnesota. They come out to get the ball.
Minnesota right now has to have good defensive concentration, but the most important thing with them is to get the offensive rebound. Michigan has 13 offensive rebounds now in this game.
Greg, you brought up a good point. Rose firing away from three-point range. Second three-pointer of the half for Michigan. 5 points in the half for Jalen Rose. 7 in the game, and Michigan extends the advantage on Minnesota early in the second half.
To start playing honest defense and staying with their man, because look at this. They help inside on Howard. Now Jalen Rose has all day. Go ahead, run it, guys. To look at the basket. Look at the concentration inside, and now they're Rose. All day to look at it. He lines it up, and I can even hit that, Wayne, and I'm sure you can too, with that much time.
Steal by Weber. It'll belong to Michigan. Great play by Weber as he slammed it off the side of Jason Walton.
As good a job as they did about a week ago to this very minute of handling the Iowa pressure, they're doing as poor a job against Michigan. Michigan is really dictating everything on the floor right now.
Jalen Rose in close to foul Ariel McDonald. Take a look at this.
Minnesota shooting the 60%. But I tell you what, they can shoot 60% in this half, but if they're not going to allow, if they're not going to turn their defensive effort up just a bit, then they'll score a lot of points in the second half, but they'll still lose the game by 10 or 15 points.
Jalen Rose makes good on his first. He now has 8 points in the ball game, 6 here in the second half. There's a look at his log. Boy, what an advantage to have the kind of size Michigan has in its backcourt.
And Rose was the big gun against Minnesota in the first game. 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists in Minneapolis.
This time the Gophers solve the pressure. Jason Walton with authority.
That's the way you attack pressure. But you got to have your court spread. You got to attack it with the pass and not the dribble.
Juwan Howard traveling. He left it on his hip. He had it tipped a bit and then got it caught on his hip as he made his move. Turnover Michigan. Minnesota gets an opportunity here, trailing by 18 points.
And that was a good defensive sequence for Minnesota. Can they sustain it? That's the big question, and that will determine whether or not they get back into this game.
Intended for Vashawn Leonard. It'll go to Michigan. Minnesota struggling a bit on the half court as well. Clem Haskins, some positive claps and words for his team. The road woes continue for this Minnesota bunch.
February the 8th, last year, the last time Minnesota won a game on the road, that was a two-pointer at Northwestern.
Rose rings it in and out, but there's Jackson.
Now it's volleyball time, and if this is going to be a jumping contest, then Michigan is going to win. They've got better athletes inside. They've got the longer arms. Minnesota has to be able to put a body on these people and push them out from the basket.
Jackson on the inbounds for Michigan. Jalen Rose off a screen by Weber. Ray Jackson, the penetration, had it slapped away. It's going to belong to Michigan. 34 to go on the shot clock. Ryan Wolf up off the Minnesota bench. Report time for Ariel McDonald here. Minnesota needs some scoring, perhaps from the outside from Wolf, as three-point shooter. They're going to have to make up the difference. And time will become a factor soon. Wolf here, guilty of a hold as Jalen Rose took it around a screen. Wolf first personal. That is the second of the team.
There you got an illustration of just how much of an advantage the extra height at the point guard position is for Jalen Rose. Wolf right in his face, but he was looking right over the top of Wolf's head as if he wasn't there.
Rose 6'8", Wolf 6'3". Foul coming up here, and it's going to be on Wolf. So Ryan Wolf picks up a couple of quick fouls here. Second on him, third on the team.
Tell you what, you can clearly see that the Michigan people feel that there's no way Wolf can stay with Jalen Rose, so they get the ball to him immediately, get him down on the block, and it takes a Wolf foul to stop the Jalen Rose basket.
There's a look at Rose. 6 of those 9 points coming in this second half of play. Or I should say 7 now. 8 of the 10 points coming in the second half of play for Jalen Rose.
Steve Fisher on the side talking to Jimmy King. And it looks as though he's setting up the pressure again, so Minnesota has to be aware, especially if Rose is able to knock down the free throw.
Michigan's done an excellent job of the free throw line, missing just 2 today. Up off the bench, David Grimm comes on for the Golden Gophers. Gives Jason Walton a breather. Pressure again from Michigan. Marshawn Leonard. Tolander plays it ahead.
The difference between this pressure, as I see it, and Iowa's pressure last week, it was more zone pressure that they were going against, and Iowa didn't put anybody back, so they were able to throw the ball long, that is Minnesota. But today is man-to-man pressure, and Michigan is doing such a good job of moving their feet. Minnesota is not able to free themselves, not even for the initial inbound pass.
The foul on Rose is his third personal, second on the team, and will precipitate these free throws by Randy Carter. Carter yet to score here in this ball game. Did not score in the first half, obviously, and still scoreless now as he misses his first free throw. Went to the line once in the first half. There's his season average. Michigan with the front line has really taken control of this game down low. And with their pressure defense out on the floor, capitalized in that aspect as well. Interior feed to Juwan Howard. Tough shot.
You just got to battle for the low position, because Howard is a guy, when he catches, he just turns with the long arms, puts it well up over his head, the basketball, and just shoots it right in your face.
22 points the lead now for the Wolverines. Feed, interior feed taken away and now recaptured by David Grimm.
Look at this. That's defensive tenacity. Rose right up in Leonard's face, and Leonard is 40 feet from the basket.
Of course, Marshawn Leonard and Jalen Rose, Southwestern High School under Barry Watson in Detroit, won 2 state titles. King on the drive. Another offensive rebound for the Wolverines.
Count it.
Weber.
Count it. Tell you what, he cannot be stopped that low in this league, at this level, or the next.
Maybe in this game. Or the next, you say.
That's right.
Some are thinking about the next level already. Marshawn Leonard for the outside for 3.
I think at this point, Leonard's just going to have to take over this game. He is going to have to look for his own offense and then hope that they can come back down with a defensive effort, because that's the only way they're going to get back in this game. They've got to be able to stop Michigan a few times.
Jimmy King answers with a tray.
They've got Grimm deep.
David Grimm picked up quickly by Weber, blocked by Jackson. Gonna belong to Minnesota. Boy, Michigan gets back so quick. We told you that, again, Jalen Rose and Bashawn Leonard. There is Bashawn Leonard. Went to Southwestern High School in Detroit, and their coach was current Michigan assistant Perry Watson. An outstanding job he did with that program. Couple of state titles.
They won a couple of state titles, but I tell you what, Perry Watson's high school winning percentage is phenomenal. He was in the state finals about 9 times before he finally won 2 in a row with these guys.
Bashawn Leonard from deep for 3.
You got to keep him shooting. He's got to move without the basketball. Has terrific range, and at this point, he's just got to look to get it himself, as I said before.
Coming off games of 32 and 23 points, Bashawn Leonard. Rose with a swinging move on the drive. Got a foul coming up here, and they're calling it offensive against Jalen Rose. His 4th versatile foul.
Rose just a little bit out of control. Now, this could be a point in the game where Michigan gets a little sloppy. Fortunately for Michigan, they got a 21-point lead, so they're going to get awfully sloppy. Minnesota to get back to within shouting distance. Down 21 right now, 4:16 to go.
And the Gophers set it up offensively. Bashawn Leonard sets the play. David Washington is in the ballgame now for Minnesota. Clem Haskins reaching deep on his bench here. Ryan Wolf with a 3-point try. Weber guilty of the foul, I believe. Yes.
He was reaching up over David Washington. Now, interestingly enough, Weber and his Country Day team, high school that is, played David Washington's Albion team for the Class B state championship just a couple of years ago. So those two guys know each other very well. By the way, both teams went into that championship game undefeated. Weber's team won.
Leonard off the mark this time. Jimmy King. Weber double teamed. Nonetheless, manufactures 2 more points. He has 18.
Boy, he makes it look so easy. But when he gets the basketball inside, very difficult when he's deep.
Oh, good look by Carter down low. Dobbins went up and down.
And
I should say David Grimm went up and down with that play.
Yeah, now that's twice Grimm has got the ball. Got a feel for him. He gets the ball right under the basket, but there's the specter of Chris Weber looming. Watch this. Grimm gets it. He's got a layup if he goes right now, but now Chris Weber's there. He makes you think, and he makes you travel.
Michigan basketball inside court as Bashawn Leonard knocked it out of play while we were into that replay. Some concern now as to whose ball it is. Clem Haskins heading down the bench. Steve Fisher wants a little clarification. This is what it's all about here.
Well, clearly that's Minnesota's ball.
Bashawn Leonard did not tip it out of bounds. Clearly Minnesota's basketball, and that's the change made by the officials. Actually, Ed Hightower had it all the way, Minnesota. Ariel McDonald back into the game now for the Gophers. Carter. Leonard with a tough feed. Carter in traffic. His first 2 points of the game. Averages almost 13 points a contest for Minnesota.
And look where Weber is. Already he has that low box position. You just got to beat him to the spot, which Minnesota is not doing right now. You got to beat him to that spot and then not allow him to recapture it.
Weber being guarded by Randy Carter, who's a 6'8", 235, 240 wide body.
Look at that.
Weber inside, got right behind Carter. 20 for All-America candidate Chris Weber. Bashawn Leonard. King trying to pry it loose. Riley knocks it out of bounds, but it's going to belong apparently to the Michigan Wolverines. Last touchdown, the play by David Grimm of Minnesota. There's the shooting at the three-point range. You look at Michigan, 0 in the first half. They've missed just once here in the second half from three-point land. Minnesota trying to step up a half-court defense. Man-to-man now. Pelinka pops around a screen by Riley.
Well, they got a lot of weapons.
Pelinka for 3, has 7 in the game. That's it. They have so much versatility. Their big people handle the ball and run the floor so well. Their guards are bigger than most NBA guard combinations. And they have great depth on the bench.
And athleticism from top to bottom, which allows them to get out and play the tough brand of defense full court for 40 minutes. This is very difficult.
Ariel McDonald's three-point field goal. Michigan struggling a bit here. They clear it to Weber, and this is elementary.
How you like that?
Carter, a brick off the glass. Here comes Weber. Bosco bobbled. Riley, the tip, no. Offensive basket interference.
Well, they just keep constant pressure on you. They just keep coming and coming and coming. Michigan in the transition game.
Watch this. Bosco juggled for a moment. Riley, it's up on the rim. We go to break. Getting Chris Weber.
This is just a big man with tremendous agility. Look at this. The catch, the spin to avoid the offensive charge, and just a drop in the basket. Oh, you can look at it all day long. Show it again and again and again. He's still going to score with the tremendous inside moves.
And some of the biggest hands in college basketball, period. They had a photographer out here taking pictures of Weber's hand for a feature that will appear in one of the local newspapers coming up next week. Boy, look at his log today. What a job. When it goes into the post and Weber is the recipient, very seldom does the ball come out unless it goes right through the net.
And his defense has been superb today as he's held Randy Carter to just 2 points. He's done a big job in making that Michigan full court press very strong.
John Leonard doing his part of the second half, has 12 second half points, 17 in the game. Trying to get Minnesota back into it, but Juwan Howard. Riley inside and is stripped away. And it's going to belong to Minnesota. A rare fumble on the interior by one of the Michigan big men, Eric Riley in this case.
Well, let me take you back to the first half when we talked about Michigan. They had the slows, so to speak, and Minnesota really unable to take advantage of that. Their biggest lead, I think, was 4 points. You knew that Michigan was going to come out of it sooner or later.
Ariel McDonald off the mark from behind the three-point line. Here's a steal by McDonald. Michigan leads the Big Ten in steals. Oh, and Dana Jackson missed the jam. Talley to Riley to Howard.
Yeah, he won't miss his. I tell you, again, they just keep coming at you. How quickly it can turn. Now, that was a 2-point jam, you thought, for Minnesota. It ends up a 2-point jam for Michigan, a 4-point turnaround.
David Grimm hits the heel of the iron. Pelinka's got 3-on-1.
They're giving it up.
Juwan Howard blocked on the play by Minnesota's Washington. Dana Jackson clears.
Pelinka should have given that ball up. Certainly the hallmark, I think, of this Michigan team, not only their athleticism, their tremendous depth, but their unselfishness from top to bottom.
Under 10 minutes to go in the game. Michigan on top, 68-43. Minnesota laboring in the half court. Away from the ball, got a foul. Apparently, let's see, going against David Washington. Washington picked up his first personal foul. That is 4 on Minnesota.
We say how quickly it can turn. Look at this. Here's Dana Jackson. From his missed dunk, that's almost a fast break outlet in and of itself. That ball went all the way back out to half court.
Talley picks it up for Michigan. Leon Derricks in the game for the Wolverines for the first time. Ryan Wolf the rebound for the Gophers. Jason Walton on the run. Dana Jackson posting up. The youngster Derrick. Oh, nice move by Jackson. Beautiful move in close.
Well, you can see Jackson's been paying attention. That looks almost like a Chris Webber move.
Voskuhl for three.
Well, as we said, which do you want? Do you want to go out on Voskuhl, or do you want to let Howard have the inside position? That time they doubled Howard without the basketball, so Voskuhl more than willingly took the shot.
5 3-point field goals to fuel the second half for Michigan. There's a block there by Leon Derricks. Juwan Howard running the break. Talley pulls it right back out, and Bilgan fight for three. Washington the rebound, Minnesota. Ariel McDonald on a nifty move, and Derricks is there to clear. Broke it up on the play for a moment by Ariel McDonald. Fight to Howard. Strong on the shot by Howard. Both teams struggling now in this up-tempo game.
That's because Michigan has gone to Showtime basketball, and we've still got almost 8 minutes to play.
Wild shot by David Washington on that sequence for Minnesota. This game has gotten away from the coaches, I've got a feeling. Minnesota triggers the steal there, Washington. And now the Gophers set it up. Try to put some order back into their offense. They trail 71-45. Walton was pushed by Voskuhl on the play, and James Voskuhl his second. That was 5 team fouls on Michigan. Timeout on the floor. 7:34 left to go from Chrysler. Voskuhl and the Wolf of Big Ten, Michigan and Northwestern going for the championship after 2 days of competition. And you get a look at the rest of the standings in this championship competition. Up here on the hill, Steve Fisher's Chrysler Arena. The Wolverines leading 71-45 over the Golden Gophers.
You got to look at Steve Fisher there. Let me say this. I think he's done a great job with this Michigan team. You know, he still gets a lot of criticism in this area, but he had enough guts to allow his young players to be themselves out on the floor. He didn't try to change them. He gives them subtle directions. And last year, doing it his way allowed them to make it to the final game of the college basketball season.
David Washington on the slam as he followed the miss by Ariel McDonald.
And as you said, Fisher didn't really like the way this game was turning, so he's starting to get some of his starters back in the game. Ray Jackson came in during the timeout. Chris Webber will check in momentarily.
Michigan's lead still 24 points.
Obviously, Fisher wanting to give his bench players some time, those that do not get a lot of time in this blowout situation here, but he wants execution. He doesn't want sloppiness out on the floor. Good habits you want to stay in, especially as you gear for the NCAA tournament. We mentioned in our open how important it is to go in on an uptick. Michigan went in on an uptick last year and again got to the championship game.
Leon Derricks, first personal foul, 6 on the team. Tom Haskins is getting some positive minutes. There's Derricks, the youngster, talking with Steve Fisher. Chris Webber is back into the ball game for the Wolverines. Chad Colander returns for Minnesota. Juwan Howard is seated on the bench for Michigan. Outstanding young man from Chicago Vocational High School. Ryan Wolf, Dugan Fife right at his shirt. Dana Jackson over Webber. Webber got a piece of it, so it appeared. Derricks the rebound.
Yeah, and Jackson was fully extended that time, but Webber with such great defensive timing, the long arms, and as you said, the long, big hands as well, still was able to get a piece of Jackson's shot.
Talley penetrates. On the floor, Sean Leonard picked up the rebound. He was flat on his back. Wolf for 3. Ryan Wolf, second tray of the game, has 6 points. 21 points the lead for Michigan. Under 6 minutes to go. Good backdoor feed, it appeared. Last touch by Minnesota. Leon Derricks on the feed to the baseline, trying to hit Ray Jackson. Tally to Weber. Ariel McDonald. Michigan trying to get, or I should say Minnesota trying to get the deficit into the team. Weber there with the rebound. Wolf way off the mark on that shot. Jackson.
They keep the constant pressure on, as I said before, always attacking the basket, especially after missed field goals and turnovers.
Ryan Wolf.
Wolverines.
Ryan Wolf was beaten to the baseline, picks up his third personal foul, 5th on the team. Next Saturday on Raycom, Michigan State against Iowa are offering at 1 p.m. Eastern time, then Indiana and Minnesota. Indiana and Minnesota, 3 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock Central time here on Raycom. Could be a couple of outstanding ball games there. Weber for 3. Rebound picked away by Dana Jackson.
Clearly, as we see Minnesota make their way back down on the offensive end, this is a team that feeds tremendously off the energy and enthusiasm generated by 17,000 plus in Williams Arena in Minneapolis. When they come on the road and it's just them against the other team and its crowd, they just do not get the effort. Still looking for that first win in over a year in the Big Ten.
Ariel McDonald. 7 for McDonald. You wonder, Greg, what Minnesota can do to battle that, because I imagine it's starting to prey on the minds of these players. This ball kicked loose.
You're absolutely right, but hey, they did it here for 16 minutes in the first half. They controlled tempo, got a great defensive effort, got back defensively, but then it all fell apart.
Timeout Michigan as Deshaun Leonard completes the drive. He has 19 points. And Steve Fisher not at all happy with the way his team is playing right now. 4:35 left to go. Michigan still leads. Marines in action.
Well, it starts with Chris Weber getting the defensive deflection again, taking it in transition. Oh, the big fellow handling the basketball. Then watch this little nifty pass to Jimmy King, that is, and he finishes with intensity.
Our Pizza Hut delivery of the game. Michigan resumes offensively. They have gone through some sloppy sequences here in the last several trips down the floor. Double team here as they trap on the half court to the Gophers, and the foul is coming up on Ryan Wolf. It is his 4th personal.
Wayne, just to finish my thought on Minnesota and what they've got to do to turn this thing around somehow on the road. You know, you just got to have that defensive and offensive concentration for 20 minutes, one half, 20 minutes the next half on the road. You just can't afford to let up, especially when you're playing a team like Michigan. When Michigan turned it up defensively and on the offensive glass, Minnesota did not have an answer today.
It was 24-20 with 4.5 minutes to go in the first half. Michigan went on a 12-2 run to end the half, and it's been all Michigan ever since. Rose on the miss. Riley with authority on the jam. He has 6.
Well, that's one reason why Minnesota is suffering today, and of course the other, the defensive intensity, which started with Chris Weber.
Wolf trying to the interior feed to Colander. Good hand. Leonard in among the trees. Ariel McDonald out on the floor for 3. Or, yes, they are going to call a 3.
Now, Clem Haskins indicated as the officials would bring Colander and Riley in and talk to them and tell them, hey, knock it off just a little bit inside. Those two really going at it. Clem Haskins says that his team needs to play 500 basketball their remaining 6 games. That is easier said than done, because when you think of where their games are, they've got 3 remaining on the road, and then they've got home games against Indiana and Illinois.
Through the hands of Dugan Fife, Ariel McDonald picks it off. Gophers, to their credit, have never given up today.
They're doing a lot of good things offensively here. The guards finally getting involved, Leonard and McDonald. You can only hope if you're Clem Haskins that carries over.
Here's what you were talking about. On the road at Northwestern, Indiana at home. They beat Indiana last year at home. Illinois at home, and then Penn State and Ohio State on the road. That Penn State game may not be an easy game, and Ohio State, again, an improving ball club, but a game that you figure Minnesota might win there on the road.
Absolutely. So to say that they need to play 500 basketball, easy said.
Jimmy King finishes the break. He has 11. Minnesota will be 1-7 on the road following this ball game today. And again, as Greg mentioned, 13-1. The friendly confines, Williams Arena. Oh, great feed, Dana Jackson. That's Chad Colander. My goodness. 8 for Colander now. Under 3 minutes to go in the ball game. Jalen Rose trying to break some of the pressure in the half court. Michigan spreads the floor. This is Weber. Offensive foul. Chris Weber, his 4th personal.
You know, in defense of Clem Haskins and the Minnesota Gophers, too, we should also indicate as we see this replay, Weber with the shoulder in the Colander, the offensive foul. We should clearly indicate that Minnesota's a young basketball team, and part of being successful on the road, too, in this league is having experience. And they're gaining it right now, but taking a beating.
Bashawn Leonard with a tray. Now has 22 points, 17 in this second half. Ariel McDonald with all 10 of his points in the second half. So the guards came to play in the second half for Minnesota. They had 5 points between them at halftime, and they now have 17 second half points.
But remember what we said. Minnesota, even with a better offensive effort in the second half, would have a nice score on their side of the board, but if they didn't turn it up defensively, keep Michigan off the board, they were going to lose by 10 or 15 points still, and that's going to be the case here, it seems.
Michigan working the clock. I got a foul coming up here against Minnesota. The foul being called on David Grimm. The point on the Minnesota guards, Greg, 17 out of Bashawn Leonard, 10 out of Ariel McDonald in the second half of play, so a combination of 27 points from the guards, but that's been basically it for the Gophers of Minnesota in the second half. Those guards combined for big numbers this week against both Iowa and Wisconsin as the Gophers won 2 in a row to help solidify their chances for the NCAA. At the line, Jackson missing on the free throw. That's one area that has Michigan people a bit concerned, is the free throw shooting of this Wolverine team, down around 65% overall. They'd like to shoot up around 70%. Ariel McDonald blocked by Jalen Rose on David Grimm, and then Grimm ties him up and commits the foul. Grimm with his 2nd personal. 18 fouls now on Minnesota. James Bosco up off the bench for Michigan, reporting back on. Michigan will be 21-4 following this game. 2 of the 4 losses to Indiana by a combined 2 points.
You know, again, I want to emphasize just how Steve Fisher has gone about letting these guys show themselves and be themselves on the floor. Look at the socks, all the way down to the socks. Black socks by Jalen Rose. But, hey, that's just him and his personality out on the floor. He doesn't make these guys be robots. He gives them flexibility. He lets them do it their way. And I think they've got a lot of distance out of that. They don't win the Big Ten championship this year. That's a great possibility. But they're going to be a very tough team in the playoffs.
Leonard with a quick release for 3 in traffic.
In your face, too, Jalen. Take that. You know they're going to talk about that in the summer.
Oh, absolutely. Former teammates at Southwestern High School in Detroit. Chad Colander gives the foul here. Colander's 2nd personal. 9 on the team. 1:13 left to go in this game.
Watch this. This is a big-time facial. Look at Jalen right there slapping at the basketball as he gets nothing but net. Bashawn Leonard.
Take a look at the 3-point field goals in the second half. Minnesota's done the job, and it's come back attempt from the 3-point line. But Michigan has been fueled by many, many different obstacles.
You're right. Ford does go.
Bashawn Leonard, and take a look at the enthusiasm on the bench. Clem Haskins leading the way.
Well, they know that with the possibility of the 3-point shot, they're still in this game. They're just 4 possessions away. Of course, they're going to have to put Michigan on the free throw line and hope that they miss free throws. But Minnesota and Clem Haskins keeping it very easy right here.
Keeping it very positive, does Clem Haskins, as his team struggles on the road. But it's made a nice comeback. Michigan led by as many as, 24 points or thereabouts in the second half of play. I mentioned, take a look at the shooting in the free throw stripe here today. Michigan, 14 out of 19. Minnesota, 1 out of 6. The free throw stripe. Not getting there very often, not making an awful lot of free throws when they do. But Minnesota has outscored the Wolverines in the last 10 minutes plus.
And this is why Steve Fisher became very concerned with about 8 or 9 minutes to go. Michigan was already into their showtime mode. Fisher saying, hey, this game still has plenty of time left. And now they've had to recollect themselves and try and get intense again.
Well, it goes back to what we talked about at the top, motivation for Michigan, concentration, staying on top of it.
I think they had it today, but again, Michigan has been guilty of going into lapses themselves. Fortunately, when they went into theirs today, they had a huge lead.
Coming up on the final minute of play in the ball game. Minnesota trailing by 12.
They're going to have to look for the three.
Sean Leonard again. This time the rebound, Weber. Now Michigan on the break. Jimmy King fouled, and will it count? Apparently they're going to call it out on the floor. No continuation, obviously.
I'm surprised.
I am too.
Yeah, when the whistle blew, King was in the air.
Ariel McDonald, his second personal.
Look at the basketball rebound. He keeps it up top. Weber doesn't bring it down. They push it quickly. Jalen Rose up to King. Now, right there is where the whistle blows on. That's a basket. That's got to be a three-point opportunity. Minnesota catches a break.
Jimmy King at the free throw line for a pair. 0 for 1 from the charity stripe here this afternoon. Michigan will run its Big Ten record at 10-3. Their losses again at Indiana, at Iowa, and at home to Indiana. Perhaps the greatest run for a team thus far this season was the performance of Michigan in the Rainbow Classic. This one up for grabs, and they call a jump ball on the alternating possession. It's going to go to the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. Michigan, in 1 week, took on nationally ranked Nebraska, North Carolina, and Kansas, and defeated all three out of the Rainbow Classic.
And I think it was that stretch that showed everyone that these guys have matured, they're for real, and forget the fact that they probably will not win the Big Ten championship. Remember, Michigan's last national championship team, 1989, finished third in the Big Ten. But who remembers that?
Yeah, that's right. Kevin Baker gets the field goal for Minnesota as Clem Haskins empties the bench. Bosco is fouled quickly on the play by Kevin Baker, a freshman out of Toledo, Ohio. There's a look at Baker, 6'6" and 205. Clem feels very good about his ball club. They'll be together again next year. And he's got a couple of recruits coming in that will play right away. So this program well on its way to getting back to the status of Final 8 in the NCAAs. They were, what, 3-4 years ago.
And you keep in mind, that team that went to the Final 8 started very young. They were all freshmen together, and they struggled too. So they're right on course.
Well, of course, Willie Burton, Kevin Lynch, Richard Coffey, that group. Bosco missing on a pair at the line as Michigan Chrysler Arena begins to empty out here. Sean Leonard gets it back. Nice dish blocked by Bosco on Dana Jackson, but a foul. 21.6 seconds remaining. Bosco picks up the foul, his third.
Well, Leonard lost control. He was looking for the three-point shot, but he got on the floor, made a nice pass inside to Dana Jackson. Then there's Bosco. Got him with the follow-through right across the face for the foul.
Dana Jackson to the free throw line. We showed you a graphic of Minnesota over the last 10 minutes and 6 seconds. Really getting on a run, 24-6 over Michigan. Over that span, they did much of it without going to the free throw line, which is an accomplishment in itself. They have not given up, have the Wolverines, or have the Gophers, despite the fact that Michigan, with all the weapons, built up the big halftime lead and extended it to well over 20 points early in the second half of play. Dana Jackson makes good on a pair. And Ryan Wolf back into the ballgame, replacing Dana Jackson for Minnesota.
And Wayne, we got the answer to some of our opening questions. Clem still has his work cut out. Minnesota, if they're going to get that NCAA bid. And yes, Michigan will be motivated. I think they'll play very hard in their remaining 5 Big Ten games.
Ryan Wolf has just fouled out. Picks up his 5th personal foul. Minnesota is over the 10-foul limit now, and Jalen Rose will get a couple at the line. This 9-point deficit is the closest Minnesota has been in the second half. Jalen Rose, though, goes to the line, looks to put Michigan back on top by double digits. Jalen Made 4 in a row the free throw stripe here in the second half before missing his last free throw attempt. 12 points for Jalen Rose. Michigan, the 5th ranked team in the nation, will go 10-3 in Big Ten play and 21-4 overall. Rose, the southpaw, puts in on a pair. 13 for Jalen Rose. Final 20 seconds. Turnover, Minnesota. Michigan gets it back as Ariel McDowell's pass does not find the mark. And Minnesota will be 14-8, 6-7 in the Big Ten Conference. 1-7 on the road this year. And the foul given quickly by Colander, stopping the clock. Colander's second personal foul will send the Wolverines to the line for a couple of more free throws. Jalen Rose will be heading back to the free throw stripe.
You brought up a good point about Minnesota's remaining games. They got the road game at Northwestern, but when they go to Penn State, they're going to find out, as many teams in the Big Ten have already, that that is no picnic. They played very, very well in State College.
Well, you and I saw them extend a good Purdue team a few Saturdays ago. There's Clem Haskins. All they could do is stay positive with his team. He doesn't want to talk about their road woes. He doesn't want to talk about it in terms of not having won a Big Ten game on the road since over a year ago. Wants to stay as positive as he can with his team, especially when it comes to talking about the road. Here's a steal by Weber. Fireworks in the final second.
Fittingly, because it was Weber who changed the complexion of this game for Michigan.
26 for Weber in the game. 17 in the second half. Steve Fisher getting congratulations, I should say, from the Minnesota coaching staff and some of the players. Take a look at Chris Weber to put the exclamation point on Michigan's 84-69 victory today here at Chrysler Arena in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We'll be back.